we are reminded that Africa is the youngest continent. On a daily basis, we are reminded that this is the continent with the greatest prospects. On a daily basis, we are reminded that paradoxically this is the richest continent on earth, but our people, ironically, are the poorest. I thanking the leadership of the African Youth Leadership Forum, with whom I've had association for a long period in their various activities in different parts of the continent of Africa. Let me also thank the good doctor. It is many years ago, in 1989, when we first met, and he has performed spectacularly well in molding young people. Let me also thank the good professor and the country coordinator of AYLF. It gladdens my heart to be present here and to very simply remind you of what is said on a daily basis. On a daily basis, we are reminded that Africa is the youngest continent. On a daily basis, we are reminded that this is the continent with the greatest prospects. On a daily basis, we are reminded that paradoxically this is the richest continent on earth, but our people, ironically, are the poorest. We are humiliated in different parts of the world as our young men and women run away from the continent. You only have to see how Western embassies humiliate our young men and women. You only have to see how our young men and women are humiliated in Morocco, in Tunisia, in Libya, as they cross the desert and then the Mediterranean Sea in the quest of what they think is better life. The paradox is that as this happens and as our young men and women suffer this fate, African politicians are the richest in the world. It is an irony. And as Wole Soyinka once said, what amazes him is that when young people across the continent are called upon to congregate, they have the habit of supporting the very same individuals who steal from them. So that in many African countries today, we may claim and talk about democracy, but many African countries are led by kleptocrats, thieves. But we are never angry for some reason. We still celebrate thieves. We call them our thieves. Which then begs the question, if the 21st century is going to be the century that defines Africa's future, are we on the right track? We are in the first third of the 21st century, in the year 2025. And as the saying goes, time and tide waits for no man. So today, as we congregate here, and as we ask ourselves the necessary but uncomfortable questions, we must ask ourselves whether we are in the right direction. On the 21st day of October 2025, I was at the State University of Zanzibar on the occasion of the launch of the digital contributions of Sheikh Abeid Amani Karume, the first president of Zanzibar. And they too are focusing on the role of the youth. And I reminded my audience that if they remember very well, in 1964, when Amani Karume led his party, Afro Shirazi, to join the party of Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere TANU, it was then, and even much later, that Nyerere said in Kiswahili, siri ya maendeleo ni kuwa na vijana wenye malezi bora, siha njema na bongo kali. Those words ring true today as they did then. And if you are to permit me, and you are to allow me to take you back to history, and to take you back to the time when young Africans were seeking the independence of their countries from the colonial yoke, they were your age mates. Some of them did not have university education. Patrice Emery Lumumba did not have university education. Modibo Keita in Mali did not have university education. Ahmed Sékou Touré in Guinea did not have university education. Samora Moises Machel in Mozambique did not have university education. But there were others who had university education. Kwame Nkrumah had, Nyerere had. But that was not their claim to fame. Their claim to fame was that they were sacrificial and that they meant well for their country and they were willing to sacrifice. Today, the question to be posed to many young Africans, are you willing to sacrifice? I talk to you at a time when the African continent is convulsing. In fact, one can dare say that it is the best of times in Africa and is the worst of times, if you allow me to borrow and paraphrase that statement from the mayor of Casterbridge. It is the worst of times because when you look at the continent as I speak to you now, the country that we know as Sudan is at war, generating the largest number of internally displaced persons since the World War II. Central African Republic is in trouble. The Democratic Republic of Congo is in trouble. in the Sahel, northern Mali, northern Chad, northern Niger, northern Burkina Faso, Libya, Somalia, parts of Ethiopia, northern Mozambique, northern Nigeria, young men and women do not have the opportunity to realize their potential. Southern Cameroons, in Ambazonia, it is all chaos. There are places where young men and women have not gone to school for the last 3 years. And yet Africans are silent. As our young men and women are running away from the continent, young Chinese are coming to the continent. Young Lebanese are coming to the continent. There is nowhere today in the continent of Africa where you do not find young Chinese between the ages of 20 and 30. If they are not building bridges, they are building stadia. And if they are not building stadia, they have China centers and China squares from which we even buy toothpicks. That is the state of Africa. So once again, in the same way that we were politically conquered by young Europeans, we are being economically dominated by young Chinese. And we smile and pray and fast in the hope that that is going to be Africa's solution to our problems. You young people must ask difficult questions. Are you prepared to sacrifice? African problems are not going to be solved by holding conferences and meetings, no. Perhaps we are holding too many meetings. Perhaps we are holding too many symposia. Perhaps the time now is to hold symposia, workshops, and seminars only to evaluate what we have achieved in agriculture, what we have achieved in medicine, what we have achieved in artificial intelligence. Perhaps the time is now. As Ali Mazrui famously said, Africa is infamous for producing what she does not consume and consuming what she does not produce. The time is now to reverse that. And if that is going to be reversed, it will be on the shoulders of young men and women. But those young men and women must have a dramatic mental change. Many years ago, Samora Moises Machel, then in the forefront of the struggle to defeat the Portuguese in Mozambique, told his audience, if Mozambique and Africa are to realize their potential, the tribe must die. And he told his audience, when I say the tribe must die, I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that we should not celebrate our cultural and linguistic diversity. But we must not allow the tribe to define how we look at things. Unfortunately, we live in a country called Kenya, where everything we look at is from a tribal prism. You go to universities in Kenya, some universities, and students organize themselves around tribe in the 21st century. They have organizations for Kikuyus, for Luos, for Kambas, for Kisis, for Merus, for Embus, for Pokomos in the 21st century. How primitive can a people be? Until the day that we liberate ourselves from those chains and manacles, we'll never realize our potential. We live in a country today where when a cabinet is constituted, people ask how many from our tribe. When judges are appointed, people ask how many from our tribe. When doctors are appointed and lawyers, we ask how many have graduated from our tribe. Merit is sacrificed at the altar of primitive ethnicity. Koigi Wawa Mwere has written a book which I commend to you, written in the year 2008, Towards Genocide in Kenya, the Curse of Negative Ethnicity. I pray and hope that this assembly of young men and women under the aegis of African youth leadership will exercise the ghost of ethnicity, so that you judge one another on the basis of merit. Nyerere used to say it so very eloquently in Kiswahili. Ukiona mtu yeyote anajikita kwa udini na ukabila, ana hoja. And he went on to say, ikiwa Afrika itaendelea, lazima Waafrika wajifunze kupambanisha hoja, na hoja safi itashinda na itarutubishwa na Afrika itainuka. I pray and hope that this assembly of young men and women here present will not allow themselves to be enticed by the spirit of ethnicity as the basis of making judgments. You know, Africa is begging and asking, where are my young men and women who will serve me? Africa is asking, where are my young men and women who will be doctors in whom we have faith? Where are our young lawyers in whom we have faith? Where are our engineers in whom we have faith? Where are our teachers in whom we have faith? Where are our agriculturalists in whom we have faith? Africa is asking and looking. For the moment, it appears that Africa cannot find those men and women. So that when we have cases as Kenyans, we get lawyers from outside. Our good friend and my kinsman, the late Raila Odinga, may he rest in peace, had to seek medical health in India. And there are many who do so. There are people who can't take their children to high schools in Kenya. They take them to the British system, to the American system. When will we have faith in ourselves? When will we believe that we are not children of a lesser God? When will we stop believing that prayer and fasting alone can do the things that technology needs? Prayer and fasting without action is pure superstition. You young men and women can reverse that reality. Are you prepared? Are you ready? So today, what I'm asking you is to go out there and ask yourself uncomfortable questions. Don't make the claim that you are too young. No. Africans who made great contributions, some of them were younger than you. Solomon Mahlangu in South Africa was younger than you. Tirongo Potse in South Africa was younger than you. Bantu Stephen Biko was younger than you. You are not too young. This is the time to rise up and do that which is good and right. It gladdened my heart when young Kenyans several years ago rose up and spoke the language of the unheard. They were then Christian Gen Zs. Their agenda was torpedoed and hijacked. But after that, we now know how that spirit has spread throughout the world. It spread into Bangladesh. It spread into Nepal. It spread into Sri Lanka. It spread into Madagascar. Young men and women are no longer sitting pretty. They are asking questions. I'm asking you to ask questions and to be organized and to make demands of the men and women that we have entrusted with the trusteeship of our country. Is the great Indian philosopher Raja Gopalachari, who said many years ago, you cannot ignore politics. And it's Socrates who said that man is a political animal, because even the question as to what food is going to be eaten is a political question. And I'm suggesting to you that when the politics of any country stumbles, that country stumbles. And if you doubt me, ask the Sudanese. Just last night, they struck Khartoum. The universities in Sudan are no longer functioning because politics stumbled. You cannot afford the luxury of avoiding what is happening in your country. We cannot allow our very worst to be in positions of political leadership. We'll pay the price. I'm therefore asking you that beyond lamentation, we have lamented for too long. What are you doing? Beyond lamentation, what are you doing in your village? What are you doing in your county? What are you doing in your university? Beyond lamentation. Beyond tweeting and TikToking, what are you doing? Because even the tweets and the TikToks that you use are not made by Africans. You consume what we do not produce. We are in the 4th and 5th industrial revolution. We are talking about artificial intelligence. Tell me, which aspect of artificial intelligence is made or propagated anywhere in the continent of Africa? We are consuming what others are producing. It is your generation that must change. The Koreans are doing it. The Indonesians are now doing it. The Vietnamese are now doing it. The Malaysians are doing it. The Chinese are doing it. The Indians are doing it. But Africans are praying and fasting. When you drive from Nairobi to Thika, you count the number of things that are called churches. They have run short of names. The time is now for us to think differently. And thinking differently can only happen if good men and women of goodwill also act in concert. And that is why I commend the African Youth Leadership Forum, because you have recognized that you must come together. So hili wanasema kidole kimoja hakivunji chawa. Na waambieni sasa ndiyo saa. Waswahili wanasema ukitaka vya uvunguni sharti uiname. Je, mko tayari kuinama? Waswahili wanasema mgaagaa na upwa hali wali mkavu. Mko tayari kugaagaa na upwa? Haya ndio maswali mazito tu. Na ikiwa vijana wa Afrika wataikomboa Afrika, lazima wajishinde. Kwa kuwa wahenga wanasema jishinde ushinde. Je, mmejishinda? Hilo ndilo swali. Na masomo sio vyeti tu, la hasha. Masomo ni kuwabadilisheni ili muwe vijana wenye malezi bora, siha njema na bongo kali. Hilo ndilo hoja mama. Na naulizeni, mkitoka hapa, nendeni mkatafakari. Nendeni mkajiulizeni, je, tutaibadilisha Afrika kwa namna gani? Je, tutakuwa katika mstari wa mbele ili Waafrika wasidhulumiwe tena na kuteswa tena na kudharauliwa tena na kunyanyaswa tena na kufadhaishwa tena? Tumedhalalishwa, tumedhulumiwa, tumehangaishwa. Na tusipojihadhari tutatoka kwenye kile ambacho tunakiita ukoloni mkongwe, tuwe katika ukoloni mamboleo na tuwe katika utumwa mamboleo. Na utumwa huo unaonekana hata hivi sasa. Jihadharini. Kiona mwenzako ananyolewa, kichwa chako kitie maji. Kuna watu ambao wanatunyoa Afrika, wanatunyoa kavu, na mnawashabikia kwa misingi ya kikabila. Mwaka wa 2007 2027 tunaelekea uchaguzini. Ukisoma gazeti za Kenya utafikiria uchaguzi ni wiki kesho. Na watu wananoana kwa misingi ya kikabila. Naomba mkemee ushenzi huo. Naomba msikubali. Kwa kuwa msipoikemea, mimi si nabii wa Kiyahudi, lakini msipoikemea, huenda tukaathiriwa pakubwa. Tumieni kila fursa kukemea ushenzi. Kwa kuwa ushenzi ukikita mizizi katika taifa la Kenya, hata mchango ambao mngependa kuitoa mtakuwa wakimbizi. Mtakuwa wakimbizi. Naombeni, kumbukeni, mtego wa panya huingia waliomo na wasiokuwemo. Sitasema mengi. Pia nimetumia fursa hii kuzungumza lugha ya Kiswahili maksudi tu, kwa kuwa sisi wa Afrika lazima pia tuwe na lugha unganishi, na Kiswahili imetambuliwa sasa kama lugha hiyo. Katika mihadhara na midahalo kama hii, na wahimizeni watoa hoja na mada wazungumze kwa Kiswahili. Tumezungumza Kizungu, Kiingereza na Kifaransa na Kireno na Kihispania na Kiarabu kwa muda mrefu sana. Tuitukuze Kiswahili, kwa kuwa tunajivunia ni lugha yenye asilia ya Kiafrika. Sasa wasomi walio hapa, baada ya miaka 5, ikiwa huwezi kujieleza kwa lugha ya Kiswahili, utakuwa ni msomi mchwara tu. Tuzungumze Kiswahili. Unaona Waarabu wakienda katika mikutano ya kimataifa wanazungumza Kiarabu. Wachina wanazungumza Kichina. Mwafrika akitoka pale anabambanya Kiingereza, anabambanya Kireno, anabambanya Kifaransa, anajitesa. Tukome kujitesa, tuzungumze lugha ya Kiswahili. Kwa hivyo mimi nafurahi kualikwa ili nizungumze nanyi kama mgeni wa heshima, na nawapongezeni walioandaa hafla hii na kuwatakieni mema. Mimi nahusika sana kupitia kwa wakfu wangu katika bara la Afrika. Tuko katika nchi 50, na hiyo kesho mimi nasafiri kwenda nchi ya Niger na Burkina Faso katika harakati hizi za kuhamasisha vijana. Hiyo ndio mchango, ndio tunaotoa sasa, kuhamasisha vijana katika kila pembe, ili na vijana nao wakishanolewa wajitokeze, wawe chombo cha mapinduzi na mageuzi. Si Waswahili ndio wanasema kinolewacho hupata, kinolewacho hupata. Sasa hii leo tumekuja kuwanoeni, pateni. Asanteni sana.
Wow.